So we really do very low quantity, very quick turnaround stuff. So, and we're enjoying the journey. We really talk about celebrating our successes along the way. You know, we kind of boast sometimes, and it helps motivate people and keep people going. So that's kind of a Gator machining in a nutshell.
Well, thank you both. You see two companies that are similar because they are both in northeastern Iowa, both in manufacturing, but there's a lot of differences. And I have a group of about 5 questions, which I'm going to ask both Mike and Jerry to address for us, and not in particular order. And I think we should probably have time for a few questions from you as well. So the first question that I'd like to throw out for the two of you is to describe what you feel the main economic driver for your business, what it is, and what are the economic conditions that you face right now that impact that driver?
I'll start. The economic drivers really change quickly. If you listen to the news, 2 or 3 years ago, when we were going through the economic issues, and there was everybody's getting on General Motors and Ford for flying their corporate jets to Washington. You guys remember that? That stopped business jets in its tracks. They quit selling jets, boom, like that. Did that impact us? Yes. And it happened overnight. So there's a lot of things. Gas prices right now. Everybody says that's a negative thing. Well, yes it is, but if you're us, and Boeing's just releasing that new aircraft, the 787, and I've got a lot of parts on that 787, guess what? When the gas prices go up, people buy new aircraft. So it can be a positive for people like myself. Or economic conditions with the military spending. Right now, we are creating parts on a daily basis that help save lives overseas. So there's a lot of factors there that, you know, when people die, I make money. Unfortunately, you know, overseas, because we're creating equipment that's going to help save lives, like minesweepers and that type of thing. So when the budget cuts are coming up here in the next 2 or 3 years, and they will, the defense spending is going to get cut. It's going to affect us in a negative way. But we think the commercial fields are going to improve that and offset it.
Our business is really tied to the housing industry in this country. We all know what's going on in the housing industry. In 2006, I think the annualized starts in this country were almost 2 million a year. Last year, I think we registered about 577,000. So about 50% of our business comes from new construction. The other half of our business comes from the infrastructure repairs that are going on in every city in this country. A lot of what we do is driven by the fact that the infrastructure, everything east of the Mississippi and north of the Mississippi line needs to be replumbed probably in the next 20 years. And they talk about crumbling infrastructure. That certainly has a big impact on our business going forward. And what's sustained us during this significant downturn that we've experienced in housing is the fact that the city of Dubuque Water Utility, Bob Green down there is still going to spend his $1.8 million, $2 million, whatever his number is. The water utilities in this country still spend that money. Now, if they're not running a new water line out to a subdivision on the west end of Dubuque, they're digging up Central Avenue downtown where the pipes were put in the 1930s and redoing it. So the one nice thing about dealing with city utilities and municipalities is they're going to spend their money whether they got it or not, whether they need it or not. And that's really kind of helps sustain our business going forward. When things come back and the housing sector takes off and the contractor market comes back, that will significantly tax our resources in terms of being able to deliver product and stay on top of the economic requirements that our markets. It's a small industry. We're in a very small industry, and we're a major player in it. So we feel it. We really feel it.
I'll just add another positive too, is everybody talks about interest rates. Again, Les mentioned it this morning. Interest rates right now, if you're a company in good standing, you cannot get money any cheaper than you're ever going to get it. And it's a great scenario for companies like Gator right now. We want to get money and get it very, very inexpensive.
Well, you've each talked about challenges that you're facing. Are there other challenges that you're seeing in your business right now that we'd like to know what you're doing to address them?
You know, one of the things, Bob, that we're going through in our business is we've survived this latest downturn simply through attrition. We've been fortunate that we haven't had to go down to the floor and lay anybody off. Now, we've had 40 weeks and we've done some things along that line, but we've got an aging workforce. And with the number of retirees, our workforce is probably down 25% in the last 3 years, as a result of just 30 on campus that retire. Replacing those as things come back is going to be difficult. It's going to be really difficult, specifically here in Dubuque, Iowa, but all over Iowa. It's going to be difficult for all of us. And I think workforce development is going to be critical to sustaining and rebuilding. I mean, I tell people we're running our facilities probably at about 60% of capacity right now. So we've got a lot of room, but I need people to do that. And it's going to be tough for us. It's going to be really tough for us going forward.
I suppose the biggest issue that we've got is just the same thing, is staying on top of that workforce. We've got a great staff, and I think the schools are doing everything they can to support that. But again, staying up with the competition, and how they're training and technology is another thing. Our number one customer, this is another challenge, I suppose. Our number one customer has told us that in the next 10 years, right now they have 20,000 employees, and they're going to go to 33,000 employees in the next 10 years. 9,400 of those jobs are going to be overseas. So how do we compete with that? You know, that's going to be another challenge. But I think it has to do with everything that we're doing today, and then some. And continuing to motivate people to get them to understand there is a sense of urgency, so we don't become complacent. That's another thing.
Well, all of us in business are attempting to look ahead so we don't get surprised by events. What do your crystal balls tell you, say 2 years out? What do you see?
Like I just mentioned, what we're seeing from the aerospace field is that defense is going to be cut significantly over the next few years. That the commercial end of it is supposed to be booming. We're expecting significant growth. Our business plan for the next 5 to 7 years shows us doubling in size. We're looking at putting another 20 to 25,000 square foot on next year. I think it's very rosy. It's not going to be easy. I don't mean to say that, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. I know there's opportunity out there.
Our business is probably just the opposite of that, but it's certainly affected by housing, and housing is going to come back. But there are some markets in this country that it's going to take years. You go down to Florida and you can fire a cannon through that state, and you wouldn't hurt anybody. Same thing in Vegas or Arizona, Scottsdale. I mean, they're so overbuilt. There's such a huge supply of unsold homes that it's going to take years for those specific markets, which for years were the hotbed in this country, to ever come back. California's similar. There are a lot of pockets of the country that it's going to be a long, slow recovery. Now, other parts of the country, though, we're starting to see growth. We're actually seeing pockets around the country where things are picking up. Like Iowa, where you don't see the peaks, you don't experience the valleys. And so we've seen certain markets that are starting to show a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And we're slowly making progress towards trying to capture that.
Well, you're both manufacturers, yet your markets and processes in a lot of cases are considerably different. I'd like to have you address innovation and what things you do consciously to encourage innovation in your business.
One of the beautiful things about our business is it's specification driven. The city of Dubuque or the city of East Dubuque or city of Des Moines, they all have to approve the use of our product. Okay? All that does is give us a license to hunt. We don't necessarily get the business, but if we're on the approved list, they can use it. There's only 2 or 3 other guys that do what we do. So in terms of innovation, what we concentrate our efforts on is going out and finding those niche products that one city water utility wants to incorporate into their system, and making that, and by doing that, we'll get all the other business that they have. So we've expanded our product line tremendously, and our growth has been fueled by diversity. We continue to promote product diversity. The utility here in Dubuque is totally different from the stuff that's used across the river in East Dubuque. It's totally different from on the west end of town, the city of Asbury. It's totally different from a little town I live in Bernard, Iowa. Every water utility out there has got their own unique way of doing things, and we promote that. We really promote that. And try to survive, feed off of it.
I'll address it with a very basic thing, in our style at Gator. If you remember again this morning down with what Les put out there, remember the V and then the L and then the P? And what he had up in the upper left-hand corner, there was an S. And I was thinking about that. I thought that S stood for something a little bit different than what he put up there. I thought it stood for safe. At Gators, we have what we talk about having a safe environment. It's okay to share what you need to share. No repercussions whatsoever. And when you have that safe environment, when you can walk in, our senior leadership team can do that, or an employee can come up to me or anyone else and say, hey, this is what I think. We should change this because of this. This is what we believe. If you're in a safe environment, you're going to be creative. If you're creative, you're going to be productive. And if you're productive, you're going to be profitable. And if you can really live that and practice that, then that really breeds innovation.
Well, Jerry, you talked a little bit about the potential of imports impacting your business. I'd like to know what specific things you both do to compete with foreign competitors, or maybe in your case you don't face them.
Well, for our primary product line, we don't. But we have a significant portion of our business is what we call plumbing valves. Plumbing is stuff that goes inside the house versus the waterworks, which is outside. And the plumbing industry, years and years ago, there were many family businesses, manufacturing companies very similar to ours, that made all of that stuff. Little gate valves, little hose bibs, stop and waste. All of that stuff in the last 30 years has gone overseas. And in fact, one of the first things I did when I came back was I was sent over to Taiwan with a PO to try to source that equipment, or try to source that product line to bring it over here. And that line has really taken off for us. There's no way we can compete in this country with the Chinese, it went from Taiwan to China, in that side of the business, because those valves are component parts that sell for $1.50 or $2. You can't make that and survive and make money out of here in this country. So we've had to really embrace it, and a good portion of our business is an import line. That all goes through our Tennessee facility down in Elizabethton, but we service the entire country out of there, and a warehouse we've got out in Reno to sell plumbing type products. The waterworks stuff, again, the specifications, the ARRA, part of the stimulus program, has kind of prevented anyone from trying to get into that side of the business. If it's government money, it's got to be made in America. And we actually struggled with that a little bit with our Canadian company, because things were made up in Canada to try to bring them down here. They have about 65% market share up in Canada. We're trying to grow that, but you can't grow it up there. You got to bring it down here. And so we occasionally had difficulty trying to get some of those products in here. But by and large, the majority of our products, we serve a very conservative, old line industry. Water utilities and gas utilities, they're pretty slow to change. And even price doesn't necessarily convert them. So we've been very fortunate there.
What we did was, back in the mid-90s, we saw it coming with overseas. So again, we looked at quantities. We knew if there was anything of real high quantities, it was probably going to end up overseas. So what we did was say, okay, we're going to focus on the lower quantity stuff, the quick turnaround stuff, the more service-oriented things, and stay with the aerospace, because at the time, aerospace was really not going overseas that much. And it's worked for us. Now what they're telling us is there's going to be some of the product that actually goes overseas regardless of pricing, because certain components have to be purchased over there, or at least a certain percent of the radio that's built has to go overseas. Has nothing to do with price. Even if we beat the competition by 20%, we could still lose the work. It's just knowing that customer base and knowing, what their expectations are and what's important to them. So we've been really fortunate that way. We actually went to Mexico, our partner and I did, and went to putting a facility down there 3 and 4 years ago. And after looking at it, we just didn't feel safe with it. And we're really glad that we didn't do it, because the one plant that did is back in the States now. So we're more focused on getting the customer what they need within the States and reducing our cost here. And our team's bought into that.
Well, I tried to anticipate what some of the topics that would interest you would be. This is going to be your opportunity to ask some questions of both Jerry and Mike. And just as a time check, Todd, we have 7 minutes? Excellent, good. Questions? Yes, Lori.